I need to change the motor mounts on my Volvo 240 1992. I read up on it on the internet, and everyone said to jack up the engine a little bit and loosen up the bolts and jack up the engine, and to put like a piece of wood or something between the oil pan and the jack. But I'm looking at the oil pan and it is very rounded. I'm not sure how I would put a piece of wood, like a 2x4, to hold it in place, or to distribute the weight without the 2x4 slipping off. So I am going to just try putting it around where the bolt, the oil bolt goes on, and hopefully I will not crack the oil pan. Wish me luck. Disconnect the negative battery. My oil filter is stuck behind the engine mount. I cannot pull the oil filter off, so I am going to lift the car up a little bit, remove the bottom bolt that runs through the engine mount, lower the car, then lift up the engine, and hopefully that will give me enough room to remove the oil filter. I'm going to give it a shot. Most of the websites I looked at said that they did not jack up the car at all, but I'm not sure how they were able to do that because I can't reach the oil filter or the engine mount to loosen it without lifting the car. So I am going to lift the car, loosen those bolts, or take off that bottom bolt, lower the car, and then lift up the engine, and hopefully that'll work for me. I guess you'll find out. Here's another view of the engine mount and the top of the oil filter. Kind of get a view of how they're touching here. And if we come over here to the cross member, you can see where the mounts for the engine mount, where it's mounted, the bottom mount is connected to the cross member. I'm trying to decide whether or not I just take it from the bottom of the cross member to get it off, or if I loosen the bolt that passes through right here. If I just maybe pull this one off, I can jack up the engine. See here in a minute. After trying to remove the bottom bolt and destroying it, I decided to move on to the bolts on the cross members. I loosened them without much effort, and kind of thought about it after I did it and realized that lifting that up really isn't going to make a lot of room for me to remove the oil filter. So I came around this side. And I was able to get a ratchet up there next to the oil filter and loosen that bolt. So now I'm going to lower the car and jack up the engine. Actually, I may try to jack up the engine without lowering. No, I'm going to have to. Okay. And See if I can't get that oil filter off. I jacked up the engine about 3 or 4 inches in order to get it to get away from the oil pump. I guess the oil pump was really just resting on the engine mount. A good amount too. It was, you know, 3 or 4 inches. Jacked up the engine from the oil pan. I'm sure this is a bad idea. Sure, there's a better way to go about it. This is what I have to work with. This is how I did it. So the oil pump came right off very easily. Now I am going to remove the bracket where it connects to the engine block. And I got it off, so if we look at it here, we can see that the engine mount didn't necessarily squish so much as it just ripped in half. The rubber piece is here. The metal piece that's connected to the rubber piece is here. And it looks like the metal piece just kind of ripped off of the rubber mounting. I assumed there was a metal rod that went all the way through it, but I guess that wouldn't make much sense. So the metal piece just separated. So now I got to separate these this piece and put the new one on. Okay, I got this side back together. Getting that busted a nut off the one side was quite hard. I'm about to climb back underneath the car and slide this back on. I'm a little worried about getting this one in. It's really close here. So I got to make sure that'll fit. I might have to take this apart, get the bolt in here, and then put it back together. I might be able to squeeze it on there, just loosen it up a little bit to get it on there. I may not have to take it completely apart, just loosen it a little bit. Or if I had 2 hands, maybe I could wiggle it in there. But, alright. Okay, I kind of loosened it up and put that bolt in, and then just tighten things down. Not real tight, but, you know, just got everything in place and it doesn't wiggle, wiggle all over the place really. I know a lot of people said they do this from the top of the car, but I'm really finding it a lot easier to do it from the underside of the car. Whatever works for you. Here's my girlfriend screwing the bottom forward bolt in. It's a real bugger to get. And I have an aftermarket sway bar. I'm not sure if that makes a difference, but it is
making it very difficult to get to.
Yeah, the sway bar is a lot thicker than the standard one. If I was doing this again, I'd probably take the sway bar off before I even started this. It's really hard to get to. For demonstration purposes, my girlfriend's going to show you the way that she was able to get that bottom bolt in. It really was a bugger, so here's what she did.
I had to take specifically this shaped open-ended wrench and come at it from a series of angles, not just directly on the bolt like this, but actually had to kind of come in and almost like instead of using my fingers, because it was just too slippery and too tight to just use my fingers, so I had to balance it like so, kind of work my way in, get it on like this, and then kind of turn, and as I had more room, turn it to get more leverage. And I was able to get a more complete turn rather than just that and then that from another side. So, yeah, did it like that. Still took a long time, but it worked a lot better than anything else.
Alright, we tightened everything up and this side is complete. I just have to put the oil filter back on, but I'm going to change the oil before I do that. And then I'll start on the other side.